Good afternoon, GE 6100, Understanding the Self, Section 30. So before I begin, please let me know in any case that my discussion are too fast so that I can adjust. And then likewise, if you have any questions, please let me know through our chat box. Our learning outcomes for today's topic are the following. Discover the meaning of psychology. List various fields of psychology, define various fields of psychology, discover the history of psychology. So what is psychology? Psychology comes from the Greek word psyche, which means breath, spirit, soul, and logia for other literature, logos, which means study. So basically, psychology is the scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. Psychology is an empirical science. Psychological science relies on empirical evidence as a way of knowing about how we think, feel, and behave. It means when we speak of empirical science, it requires evidences, it requires testing, it requires observation. In connection with empirical evidence, is theory. A theory is a general set of principles proposed to explain how a manner or number of separate facts are related. A theory allows you to propose reasons for relationships, derive explanations, make predictions. Goals of psychology. Psychology seeks to describe the behavior, explain the behavior or mental processes, predict the behavior, and influence the behavior and mental processes. What psychologists do? Number one, research. And there are two types of research, the pure research or basic, and then the applied research. In terms of practice, someone who finished psychology can work in human resource, in clinical, or in counseling. Likewise, in teaching. So what are the fields of psychology? Number one is clinical psychology. This is usually involves conducting tests and examinations to assess the mental health of a person. When we speak of tests, these are standardized tests or the so-called psychological test to measure, to assess the mental fitness or unfitness of a person. Number two, counseling psychology. This branch of psychology is similar to clinical psychology that focus on assessing the mental health of an individual, but the focus is most on common problems of people like marriage problem, work problem, stress. Aside from common problems, they also help with the adjustment problems. School psychology. This field aims to improve students' performance in school. Educational psychology. This field of psychology deals with testing-related activities in education that may focus on curriculum, scientific experiments to ensure validity and reliability of tests, and other special needs of students. Developmental psychology. This field of psychology aims to study the developmental changes in human behaviors and actions from birth to death. So what are the physical, emotional, and even psychological changes in each developmental period? Personality psychology, this field aims to examine the differences and similarities in human personalities and how these personalities reflect on their actions. From a Greek word persona, which means mass, the personality psychologist would like to find out the differences of our actions on different occasions. Social psychology. This focuses in particular in the study of humans and their interaction with their environment and with others. Environmental psychology. This field focuses on improving the physical environment such as work, classroom setup, conduciveness of a classroom, anything that has something to do with physical environment and in connection with how we learn or how we make things work easier, then that is the focus of environmental psychology. Experimental psychology focus on the conduct of experiments and research in laboratories. Industrial psychology focus on the psychology of industry, including operations, processes, and human involvement. And it has three subparts. Organizational, which means the nature of the business, what are the processes involved, and how it operates, and what are the effects of this business or industry or organization to the employee. Human factors include company size, departments, conduciveness of office. In a way, it reflects to the how an employee will be able to accomplish something much faster, or how he will able to learn something from the industry. Number three is consumer. When we speak of consumer, it refers to the actual buying of the goods. Health psychology. It is the application of principles of psychology for the treatment and or prevention of disease. Sports psychology focuses on the application of psychological principles in studying activities related to sports. Forensic psychology, the focus on providing assistance used often in law enforcement. Psychologists may administer tests to profile a suspect or to assess a mental state of the victim. So what is the evolution of psychology? Actually, psychology started from philosophy until such time it become independent, wherein it can now explain different factors affecting human behavior and mental processes. So what are the approaches in psychology? Number one is structuralism. It was founded by Edward Tishner, which Wundt's student. Structuralism breaks the consciousness experiences into objective sensation, sight or taste, and subjective feelings, emotions, memories, dreams. Mind function by combining objective and subjective elements of the experience. Functionalism, William James. Functionalism focus on the behavior in addition to mind and consciousness. Use direct observation to supplement introspection, influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution or natural selection. Behaviorism. Behaviorism focuses on learning observable behavior, or should I say measurable behavior. John B. Watson, the proponent of Little Albert study or experiment. Another proponent of behaviorism was B.F. Skinner, a psychologist who developed operant conditioning theory. He wrote a book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity. When it comes to operant conditioning, there are three variables to be considered. We have the positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and the punishment. So whatever the consequences of our action is based on these variables, whether it will be the likelihood of repeating or not repeating the behavior. Gestalt psychology, what Max Werder and Wolf Kohler. Gestalt is the study of perception, and it is influence on thinking and problem solving. Perception are more than the sum of their parts, active and purposeful insight learning. Psychoanalysis, it was founded by Sigmund Freud. Psychoanalysis, it makes unconscious conscious. It retrains trauma through therapy. So in Sigmund Freud theory, it is most of Our childhood trauma or trauma can be traced to childhood experiences. There are certain behavior according to the unconscious. There are certain behavior that we are doing, however, we are not aware of. Cognition affects behavior. Edward C. Tolman, animals could learn by observation. Behavioral approach could not make sense anymore. Cognition affects behavior. George A. Miller. Research on memory. 1957, George Miller launched the cognitive revolution in psychology. Cognition affects behavior. Ulrich Nisser. Cognitive Psychology, 1967. Cognitive psychology is concerned with higher mental order, functions such as intelligence, thinking, language, memory, and decision making. So psychology does not operate as a vacuum. It draws facts from other related sciences. Anthropology is the science that studies man's culture to understand culture of the people. The study of individuals within the culture is necessary, which the field of psychology. Sociology deals with the origin and evaluation of human society and the process or progress of civilization. Sociology is interested in the behavior of the group, while psychology is interested in the behavior of individual in the group. Physiology deals with the operations of the body, systems, and organs and their interaction in psychology. It studies human behavior as affected by these body systems and organs. Biology study living organisms, their functions and processes. Psychology studies human behavior as affected by cell, chromosomes, hormones, genes, and other function. Economics is concerned with the production of distribution and consumption of goods, as well as services, while psychology deals on the individual behavior as affected by these economic matters. Political science deals with the origin, organization, principles, and operations of government. Psychology is concerned with individual behavior, governing, and governed. Chemistry. Chemistry deals with the composition and property of substance and the changes that takes place in those substances. Substances such as drugs and poison, for instance, have an effect on psychological functioning and behavior of an individual taking those drugs, and which belongs realm of psychology. Psychiatry is a field of medicine that is concerned with the treatment of mental illness. Clinical psychology, for instance, is concerned with the diagnosis of abnormal behavior before treatment is given by psychiatrists. The purpose of psychology is to give us completely different idea whose things we know best, meaning there are much of factors affecting an individual. It is not only a one factor influencing the individual per se. So that's how we view things. That's how we view human in general. With that, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you've learned something.